Daniel Beaty is a performer with a social conscience. He is one of those performers who, after seeing his show, you tend to say to yourself, that makes absolute sense. He grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and his Midwest sensibilities, along with his street-smart observations, which later came from living in New York, have allowed him to create cutting-edge monologues that are part humor and part social commentary.
There's a battle going on inside of me between my well-crafted external persona and an internal force trying to break free. It's a battle, you see, between the nerd and the nigger in me.
This monologuist that I had seen satisfied something so deep in me that I love to see in a performer, and particularly in the human self. It's one of these performers that it gives you a jolt, and it tells you something beyond just the words. So without further ado, I would like you to witness a little of Mr. Daniel Beaty.
I was born in the ghetto.
My name is Daniel Beaty, and I am the writer and performer of Emergency.
But I know a change is gonna come.
You know, I was not an actor initially. I remember distinctly, though, my first time in front of an audience. I was in 3rd grade, and I had this teacher, Miss Adams, who wanted a volunteer to recite James Weldon Johnson's The Creation. And I volunteered, and I memorized the poem, and I practiced my movements and how I was going to do it. And I got up for this assembly in a gymnasium, and all the parents were there, and the other teachers and other classes, and I did this poem. And I just felt in that moment that I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Some of us might make it. Can we collectively succeed when our futures?
I decided that Martin Luther King Jr. was my hero, and that I thought he was changing the world with how he had used words. And so I started entering these high school speech contests when I was just in 3rd grade. And that really sort of snowballed. And by the time I was in high school, I was traveling, giving a lot of speeches. And so that was my foundation, this sort of public speaking, this desire to use words to motivate and to encourage and to inspire. Then I went to undergraduate school, and when I was there I studied English and music, and that added another dimension. Then I went to graduate school, did my undergraduate at Yale, and went to graduate school of American Conservatory Theater, where I got my MFA. And so it was this combination. I had this young boy who was a motivational speaker. That was part of who I was. Then I had this English training at Yale and this opera singing training. And then I went and did my acting training. And so what's happened with Emergency and with currently in my career is that I'm fusing all these elements, you know, still with the basis of using words to inspire and to provoke thought and healing. That's the basis, but then I can incorporate music, and I can incorporate transforming into different characters.
And I think to myself, as our superstars bling bling.
Well, I think the danger with the bling bling and the current state of our popular culture is that it is happening without past context, without a context of what we come from. And so what these rappers and some of these stars don't realize is that while they're telling the bling bling story to our young people, that might be the only story that they know. So if I'm a child and I'm growing up in a broken home, I'm growing up in a low-income housing, I'm growing up in an educational system and situation that's not getting through to me, and then I see, you know, my examples of stars being these rappers who are bling bling, you know, an athlete, and I think that's the only thing that I can aspire to, then my possibilities are really limited. But if I can understand that I come from a people who are kings and queens, if I come from a people that have come up through so much struggle and difficulty to get where they are now, if I understand that, you know, everything is possible, then, you know, I can be more than what these rappers are telling me about.
Daniel Beaty knows that in the somewhat fickle world of show business, nothing is for certain. And when we ask about his immediate plans, he kept his options open.
You know, I have 3 sort of mantras that I'm saying for myself right now in my life. One is no attachments, no fear, and I trust you, God. And so the no attachments means not to be too attached to any external circumstance in my life or in my career. There's a great talk about what's going to happen with my show in terms of it being off Broadway and then being on Broadway and in the film. These are really thrilling things that are happening. But I'm clear that I can't be so attached to the outcome of those things that I lose focus on what my purpose is. The no more fear is that, you know, we all have talents and we all have gifts that we've been given, and it takes a certain boldness to be present in life in a way that you're really living those gifts and those talents. And one of the things that during talkbacks for my show is that I see these people who are saying, I know that I have this in me, but I'm afraid. You know, I'm afraid to really let it out. I'm afraid to really share it. And so one of my personal mantras, mandates is no more fear. If I believe that I want to do this, then I'm going to try to do my very best to do it without fear. And then the final is, I trust you, Lord. I trust you, God. And that's that I'm really taken care of. It's already been done. Everything is already ordered, and I just have to trust God. And that's also one of the messages of the piece, is that we are all connected. We're all taken care of. You know, the world is infinitely more beautiful and possible than we generally allow ourselves to realize. But if we connect to each other, if we really are honest about the state of emergency that's happening in this sort of external world, but remember that we are connected to something that's so possible and that's so great. I talk about a lot of serious themes, you know, in the show, but I use a lot of humor. And, you know, the show's about 90 minutes, and 45 of those minutes people are laughing, because sometimes the greatest humor comes from truth. And we try to look at a lot of truth in the show. And then there's just sort of the experience of seeing one person become all these different characters, you know, become everything from a homeless man who's saying spare change, to a little girl who wants somebody to play with me, to the ghost of a 400-year-old African chief. You know, so we have all of these energies and these thoughts and these movements in the piece, and it just becomes this really big celebration and thought-provoking event.
And when you leave the performance, he wants you to remember this.
We are all connected. We're all taken care of. You know, the world is infinitely more beautiful and possible than we generally allow ourselves to realize. But if we connect to each other, if we really are honest about the state of emergency that's happening in this sort of external world, but remember that we are connected to something that's so possible and that's so great, we can heal and we can overcome.